Friends, the topic of today's podcast is investing for self-employed. Several of us are self-employed. We are professionals, entrepreneurs, service providers. We run so many activities on our own and continue to thrive. But being self-employed is not easy, and we all know it. On the one side, our income may not be as predictable. It can be affected by several factors. On the other side, we need to spend a fixed amount of money every month. With fluctuating incomes, we always have the difficult task of meeting regular expenses. There is, in many of our lives, a factor of seasonality. If you are a chartered accountant, a lot of your income comes at the time of filing income tax returns. Similarly, there are various vocations in which seasonality comes into play. If you are in a business where the products are bought only in summer, or a service provider whose services are much sought only in summer, you could also be affected by that seasonality. But for all of us, irrespective of fluctuating incomes, unpredictable income, we all have to meet steady expenses. How can one really consistently do this? We surely can't live by the day. We definitely need to plan well ahead. So in that sense, if one is self-employed, planning is essential. It is not an option. But most of the self-employed people tend to believe, and wrongly so, that because their incomes are not predictable, because it's fluctuating, planning is difficult. The truth is that it is possible to plan even for unpredictable income, and one must do it. What can one achieve by planning? For one thing, we can create enough of resources to run our lives independent of our work. While our incomes can fluctuate, rise, dampen, become consistent, once again rise, once again fall, while one can experience all those fluctuations in our work life, in our professional activity, our personal life can be run like a clock. And that's what planning can do for us. Essentially, we should leave enough money to run our personal life for as long as we can. How do we meet our other expectations? Keeping enough money to give our families, to run our household every month is one thing. What about other goals? After all, every person, irrespective of whether their income is consistent and predictable or fluctuating, also needs to meet several goals like children's education, marriage, providing for their parents, holidays, buying a car, buying a home. So these are really not things which are very different, and for everybody these goals are the same. The only option, even for a self-employed person, is to plan for these goals well ahead. While providing for one's life and household requirement is a basic, the next level thing would be to provide for each goal. So planning based on goals is the next step. In this, most people who are self-employed tend to make one important mistake. In the absence of a plan, when they create windfalls and surpluses, that money does not get allocated sensibly. So we tend to use that money in a not so sensible way. Like somebody can buy a very, very large TV, or impulsively buy a car beyond what one requires, or end up buying the latest products in electronics, or in ever so many ways this money can be squandered. In fact, some self-employed people even wrongly utilize their surplus by loaning them out to others who do not have a capacity to repay. These are all coming under the category of emotional, impulsive decisions. So, how one uses the surplus smartly is very, very important, and that determines our ability to meet our long-term goals beyond running our life. One important thing which self-employed people should remember is that they should not leave their money too much with customers. While trusting customers is one thing, leaving your money in the hands of the customer thinking that you can collect it anytime is never a smart thing, because if for some fateful reason you are not in a position to collect this money or something happens to you, then this money is as good as gone. Therefore, one should be very diligent in leaving money in the hands of customers. Running operations tightly is another important thing. In good times, self-employed people don't worry too much about costs, whereas running a tight ship is the most critical thing for a self-employed person. Another thing which self-employed people generally tend to overlook, as long as their needs are getting met and they feel good at a macro level, is that they don't really estimate what is their full potential and work towards realizing that potential. I think every self-employed person should have a very accurate assessment of their potential, and this assessment should be revised and reviewed periodically so that they are able to expand their goals and also ensure they realize the full potential and ability vested in them. Saving to potential is another important thing which we don't do. While we do save something or whatever we think is reasonable, that amount does not reflect our real potential. So, every self-employed person should know what his potential saving target and work towards actualizing it. Lastly, the most important thing for a self-employed person is to understand how he can expand his potential and to constantly grow himself in such a manner that his life as a self-employed person is holistic, complete, and very accomplished. Happy investing to every self-employed person who has seen this video. I'm sure you can plan and make a better future. Thank you very much.